I want to talk about an update when it comes to Toshi, and even though nothing I say is financial advice, what is it? Not too long ago, Bitvavo announced that they are listing Toshi. Now, when it comes to Bitvavo, it's, from my understanding, right, very popular in Europe, and supposedly it is based in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. And by the way, you know, some of my aunties and uncles do live in the Netherlands, but I'm just saying, besides that point, though, I do find this pretty interesting because when I take a look at, Toshi, people like to say, oh, but what is it really doing to Toshi as of right now? Take a look at the market cap. It's still around 160 million, all this type of stuff, still below 200 million. But I think stuff like this, maybe it's not really going to show something kind of instantaneously because this is not an altcoin season. And also the sentiment when it comes to altcoins are not the best. But if let's say there was an altcoin season, if let's say the market conditions did become better when it comes to altcoins, this type of stuff sometimes kind of lays the groundwork, in my opinion. Because even arguably, I think that sometimes when a project is advertising through an athlete or through a celebrity, I think it's pretty cool, when I see it. And then at the same time, though, my kind of perspective is that because I'm already in this space, I would probably be a little bit more kind of enthusiastic in terms of researching about a project and all this. But if let's say I didn't know anything about this space and let's say someone was talking about Toshi or something like that, I wouldn't really understand what it is. So this is why I think sometimes stuff like this, arguably to me, it feels a little bit more kind of, I would say, dynamic than let's say advertising through an athlete or through a celebrity, in which case I may not necessarily know what that is if I'm only following the celebrity or athlete and I'm not within this space. So I like seeing stuff like this. But again, it's not really going to do much, I think, if there is an altcoin season on this. But we have to take a look at previously in history. Take a look at something like Dogecoin or something like that. Maybe a lot of people thought in 2020 and all this that, oh, wow, what is it really doing all this? Take a look at all these listings. It's not really doing much. But if we take a look back at Dogecoin back in 2021, if it did not have the listings that it did, it would be very difficult to do what it did. You know what I mean? Back in 2021. So even though back in 2020, a lot of people didn't really care about the listings when it comes to Dogecoin, eventually, when there was actually an altcoin season, we saw what those listings kind of did for something like that. Is Toshi ever going to become hypothetically as popular as that? No, but still, if it's just like a miniature version of it, I'm not going to necessarily complain about that. But even besides that, when I take a look at Toshi, my perspective is that the listings aren't, I think, that bad anyways. I mean, sure, we take a look at Coinbase and all this, and a lot of people really thought, oh, who really cares about it? But in hindsight, it's actually something that was pretty much talked about back then. Because if we think about it, Toshi, it's named after Brian Armstrong's pet cat. Brian Armstrong, co-founder of Coinbase, and then also on top of that, Coinbase is in the S&P 500. So Toshi kind of having that Coinbase listing that happened quite a while back ago, it's kind of like coming full circle. It's kind of like completing the journey a little bit because some other, memes out there, right, on the Base network, which Toshi is on the Base network, what I'm saying, some of them, in some cases, they're not on Coinbase. So I feel like Toshi, kind of did something pretty cool, and seeing stuff like this is kind of just more cherries on top. That's the way to take a look at it, on top of the cake. But yeah, besides that point, when I take a look at something like Toshi as well, my perspective is that, okay, I mean, I get it. The market cap is below 200 million, but actually in the grand scheme of things, my point of view is that when I was dollar cost averaging into Toshi, I mean, did I mind dollar cost averaging at moments where the market cap was above 200 million and all this? I didn't mind. So if let's say it's below 200 million, yet again, I'm not going to necessarily complain about that because I am not trying to find the perfect time. Keep in mind, I am literally just dollar cost averaging once a month and that's it. Now, I'm not speaking on anyone's behalf. This is just my perspective and I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But again, when I just take a look at something like Toshi back at below 200 million in terms of market cap, and then we're seeing even still new listings and stuff like that, I'm not going to complain about that, but that's just my perspective. Now, in the grand scheme of things, though, when it comes to Toshi as well, people like to tell me, oh, no one's really going to care about it because they say that there's just too many competitors out there when it comes to this space. Yeah, I mean, I get it. There's a lot of memes out there, but at the same time, My point of view is that more specifically on the Base network, there's not that many in my perspective because Base being Coinbase's layer 2, just because it's relatively kind of new, I would say, right? It hasn't been around for too long. And as a result, the kind of meme sort of vibe when it comes to it hasn't really been as well known, which I don't think is necessarily such a bad thing because when Solana back then as a layer 1 blockchain wasn't really known for that as well, when it really had that attention, some of that kind of went along with the ride. And then it kind of became known as that, right? But hypothetically, I do want to be a part of a journey if something like that does happen. And to a certain extent, that kind of mentality a little bit applies to me when it comes to something like Toshi, which is on Base. But yeah, besides that point, just because, again, Base hasn't been around for quite a while, Toshi does not have 20, 30, like dynamic competitors within that space. So yes, at the end of the day, it does have a meme vibe. I mean, there's a lot of it out there, but a lot of them are on other places. You know what I mean? A lot of them are on like, Solana and all this. But when it comes to Toshi, because it's on Base, it's just a little bit of a different vibe. That's the way to take a look at it, even though it is not necessarily reinventing the wheel by any means. I mean, come on. It's just kind of like a for fun type of project, the way I take a look at it. But I don't mind though, because yeah, sure, in my kind of holdings, I do also want to take a look at some more utility-driven projects, but at the same time, I want to kind of have some fun as well in terms of having these type of projects that have more so of a fun vibe. And especially seeing something like that on Base, this is one of the reasons why I am looking into something like Toshi. However, even besides all that, as of right now, I'm just staying patient, and I think that's pretty much all I can do. But in the meantime, I wanted to talk about this real quick because a lot of people like to say, oh, no one's really going to care about this. But again, had this happened, like, let's say just even back in October, we're not talking about 5 months ago or anything like that. I'm just saying back in October, it would be a totally different vibe. But just because it happened right now, when Toshi is below $200 million in terms of market cap, the vibe is a little bit different. But then at the same time, I haven't forgotten about those days, right? I haven't forgotten about those moments. But then within this space, it's kind of like a roller coaster. Sometimes there's going to be movement in either direction, right? Either down or up. Like it's not only just going to be one specific direction sometimes. However, in the altcoin space, it is what it is, right? That's kind of the vibe sometimes. So I'm just staying patient. I'm holding. That's all I can do. I mean, keep in mind, no one is necessarily telling me to believe in projects like this. Like I could easily just not care about it, but I still do want to care because I don't think I've seen an altcoin season. So how can I really kind of fully review this cycle? That's the way to take a look at it. It's like me watching, Fast and Furious, and then I didn't finish the whole movie. I mean, how would I know what happened in the movie? How can I fully review it if I don't finish it, right? So that's why I want to finish watching a movie that I want to watch. And also in this case, I feel like I want to wait and see as to what hypothetically happens, which is why I'm still just waiting, even though I get it. When it comes to the hypothetical idea of 2 cents, it is now around 50 times lower than that. However, my point of view was that I saw Dogecoin reach over 80 billion back in 2021 in terms of market cap. Toshi, considering current circulating supply at 2 cents, market cap would be around 8.5 billion. So what, around 10% of that? And that was years ago. But who knows what will happen? I mean, I'm just staying patient, holding. However, in the meantime, though, I did want to take a look at this news, I would say, this update. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. I want to say thank you for watching. I hope you'll have a nice day. It's been Lee the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.